Hi folks, and this is Matt Ferland with Otis Technology. We're here today to talk about duck hunting 101. So today we're going to talk about why you want to be a waterfowler, what you're going to do to learn to do that with. We're going to talk about the equipment you're going to need, and we're going to talk about your firearm, how you're going to need to upkeep that through the season, how to prep for the season, and how to store your firearm after. And just some general knowledge and things you're going to need to know to become a waterfowl. If you are a veteran waterfowler, hey, maybe you'll pick something up, or you might comment in our section below and let us know what you're thinking. So why should you get into waterfowl? Literally, it's a blast, right? And everybody likes to shoot. Shooting ducks is a very old sport. Gentlemen did it back in Europe. It's just a great fun. It's a community type hunt. I can hunt waterfowl on an equal playing field with my wife, with friends, with other family members, basically anybody. If you're going to goose hunt in early season, say it's a green field, you have layout blinds next to each other, and basically anybody can get involved in that. Even if your children aren't old enough to hunt yet, they can still come to the field with you and they can have their own layout blind, and they don't shoot. But when you're done shooting, they can run out and grab birds just like your dog or whatever else. And I'm not saying your kids are retrievers, but it's a great way to get the whole family involved in a sporting event like hunting. And it's fun because you can talk to your buddies while you're out there hunting, right? It doesn't have to be sitting quiet and still. And I know when I was little, it was hard for me to just sit still all day long with my dad. And, you had to learn to do that. And it was kind of focused, where duck hunting or goose hunting, we can talk, laugh. We got a little grill. You can make some lunch, whatever you want to do. You hear the birds, you see them flying, you stop, everybody covers up, call at them. They come in, you get your shot, great. If not, you wait for the next flock and you're back having a good social day. So there's people that have pit blinds, that play cards, they hire a chef to cook for them all day. It's a very social hunt, and that makes it a lot of fun. And you're not worried about, I shoot a Drake mallard and he had 3 curls and the other guys wasn't. It's not important. It's out there with your friends, getting some great table fare. Duck is very good eating. I shoot diver ducks a lot, which a lot of people say aren't good eating. They taste like fish or muddy because that's what they eat. I make jerky with them. I like it. And diver hunting is late in the season, so you're on a big lake. It's cold out. It's you got to pay your dues to really get into them like that. And I kind of like that part of it in the boat. So those are a couple things that we're going to talk about today. So who can duck hunt? Well, as long as you get your hunter safety course, you get that certificate, you buy a duck stamp, you can duck hunt. Now, some states require you to get a habitat stamp or something. You have to look at your local DNR rules or DEC or whatever your state game commission is. So you get those things knocked out, you buy the proper licensing, then you got to get permission to go somewhere. So you knock on doors, you scout. Scouting is very important. I know I've talked about that sometimes in other videos, but scouting. Watch the ducks. You drive. During early season, I might put on 100 miles a day and just drive and see where those ducks are coming from, where they're going to, where they're roosting, all that. Because the more I can identify where the X is, and by that I mean what pond are they landing on, what field, what spot in that field they're landing on. There's something there they want to eat. So I want to be able to set up there in the morning before it gets light out. So when those ducks or geese leave where they're roosting, they come to that spot to feed first thing in the morning. They get to meet me right out of the blind, whatever it is. Hi guys, how you doing? I take my limit and I go home. So scouting is super important with that. So a helpful hint to do is, if you could find yourself a mentor, somebody in your local community that is a duck hunter. Most of the guys or ladies are pretty good. They want to give their knowledge out. And it's always, duck hunting is important to have a network, because you might know Billy Bob, and Billy Bob's got a farm, or they might know somebody else that's got a pond or a boat that they want to go duck hunting, and you kind of just network. And it's also important is your northern friends versus your southern friends. You all talk to each other, and where is the migration at? I have birds early in the north here. Come December, I can't hunt anymore here, but my buddies down south that I invited up to hunt, well, now I can go down to their place. So you can make a 6-month-long season almost out of it. So that's very important to do. So in finding mentors, I know the progression of a hunter, we call it, is when you first start out, all I was about was getting out there and getting my limit, and just, if I could shoot 15 early season in geese, that's what I was driven to do that. As you get going in duck hunting and you get older, you realize that it's not always about limit. It's about that perfect setup, the perfect shot, the perfect call. You have your kill hole set up, and the bird came in and he flared, he maple leafed and came right to the spot I wanted. Everything worked perfectly, and I took the shot. I was successful, and that's what it means. But then when you've done that enough times, you get to a point where, okay, what do I do next? How do I get that thrill out of this? And helping younger hunters and doing that, for me, is very important. I've taken people at Otis Technology out, first-time hunters, and taught them some things, and hopefully set them on a lifetime journey of hunting also. So if you can find a mentor or somebody that's looking for that, it's super important. And a lot of people are willing to share their knowledge. That's what I'm doing here today, is trying to share some knowledge with you, as little as I have. So it's important, and it's a great way to get a head start. Instead of you taking 5 years to get proficient at this game, maybe you can do it in a season or 2 seasons, by grabbing their knowledge and moving forward. Okay, so let's talk about what kind of gear you're going to need to get involved in waterfowl hunting and what you're going to need. We talked about licensing and things like that. We're going to talk about hard gear. Of course, you're going to need a shotgun, 12 gauge or 20 gauge. I prefer 12. It gives you a little more range, and so the way I set up the kill hole, we call it, or is a space, a landing zone that you're hoping the ducks or geese come into. I set it up at like 12, 15 yards is where I want them. That's my first shot. The second shot, I usually find that they're moved out about 10 yards. They start taking off. So I've got a 10 yard, a 20 yard, and my final shot. You're allowed 3 shots in most states for ducks. There is an early resident season on geese that you can have high capacity mags, but we're just talking about basics. So you've got a 10 yard shot, a 20 yard shot, and a 30 yard shot. I put my decoys tend to lay that out at 30 yards, so I know when the birds are over that last decoy, they're probably out of range. I don't want to just take a chance of wounding one or something, so that's pretty much where I cut off, or if I have anybody with me. The end shots, 30 yards out, that's kind of where I say that's too far to shoot, and it's not ethical. Now, I know there's guys that put full chokes in and can shoot farther, and fantastic. You get the golden BB, I call it, when you get that one BB to do it. But there's a lot of times where you're just putting pellets out there and birds, and you're not going to harvest them. They're going to fly off, and it's just not fair to do. So I try not to do that. But everybody has their own preference, so it is what it is. Duck calls. So basically, you've got single reed, double reeds. Go with a single reed. I'm not going to get into what brand's a call. Don't get too involved with, I got to be a world champion caller, because you're going to meet me in Stuttgart in November, and we're going to get on stage and we're going to hash it out. Most of the time, competition calling will never kill a bird. It's just a different thing altogether. It sounds amazing. Those guys are the best of the best, but we're just going to talk about meat calling. So just get yourself a single reed duck call. Brand doesn't really matter. You can get high acrylics in the $150 range. You can buy $20 Buck Gardners, whatever you can get on your hands, you feel comfortable with. Try blowing it and get with that. There's a ton of videos out there you can watch on how to learn duck calling. Goose calls, the same thing. I like short reeds. Some guys like flute calls. It's personal preference. I think a short reed is probably the easiest to use all around. You can do everything with it. So that's kind of it for duck calls. And most of the time, honestly, you're going to want to get that mentor. They're going to want to call, and you're going to listen and learn, and not just do. And it's funny, birds, sometimes you'll hear a bird and you'll be like, oh, that's the worst calling guy I've ever heard in my life. And you realize it's a real bird. And then you hear something that's so sweet and you're like, oh man, that guy is, really good. And it's the same flock, it's just a different bird. And you're like, how can they sound that much different? So just get caught up on the types of calls, whether it's a comeback call or a hail call, or just learn a couple calls really well and stick with those. Chime in when you can, and try to listen and learn from whoever you're trying to hunt with. That's really important with that. Your shotgun, like I said, I prefer a 12 gauge. Try to get a 3-inch at least. 3.5s are good too. You save a little money if you shoot 3-inch. Shot size, I prefer 2s or 3s, maybe Bs if it's late season. And why the change? Because late season, the birds are getting more down in them. They're bulking up with their feathers for the winter to make their flights. And so it's a little harder to penetrate. So then you go to a little bit bigger size pellet, BB, double Bs. But I generally, 2s and 3s, you can pretty much get through your whole season. You're going to want a face mask or face paint. You can do several different types of those. This is a type of face paint. It has the black on one side and you've got the camo on the other side. And you literally just draw whatever patterns you want. If you want to write a funny note to your friend on your face, whatever you want to do. It just stops the glare. Why glare is important is because when you're looking up at birds, you got to remember they're 75, 100 feet up looking down. Everything shines and sticks out. And if you see something flicker or move, they see it instantly. So camo is very important when it comes to that. Your hands, rings, things like that shine very well. If you ever see like a drone video of a field, it's amazing how you could pick up an empty soda can in the middle of a field or a beer can, and somebody goes, oh, there's one. And you're like, maybe the farmer was having a drink when he was mowing. I don't know. But it sticks out like a sore thumb because it doesn't belong there. And the birds do the same thing. The way you put your layout blind in, you want to brush that in to make sure that it meets the surrounding terrain and there's no shadows and things like that. And it's really important to just be, even if you didn't call, if you're in that X that I talked about and you're in a blind, like on the ground, in the right spot, you never even have to call, they're going to come to that spot. So those two things is camo is very important in that. Other things, I mean, I'll use binoculars. If birds land way out, I want to try to learn something in that situation. When I'm on the boat, if I see birds land or coming that I can't tell, you have to identify different ducks. You're allowed certain limits, like mallards right now where we are at, you could shoot 2. So you don't want to ever go over your limit with certain, species of ducks. So being able to have binoculars and really see what they are, and there's wing patterns, how they flutter, and the shape of the wings, and the color on their belly and stuff. There's all things that you'll learn as you go through this. Take a duck identification class. They have them all throughout the country. It's great knowledge. You'll go through that and you'll learn to see those things. So binoculars are great to see. And then if you're hunting geese and they land out in the field, if they have a band on them, you can see it pretty easy, and that's always a good thing. You want to keep an eye on that bird. Maybe you can get a shot at that one. Dry lube. This has saved so many hunts for so many people. In cold weather, it doesn't freeze. You don't get any buildup on the bolt or bolt carrier. It's one of those things where if your gun is slowing down, if it's super cold out, you hit it with this and it still runs. You get dirt or mud in there, you clean it out, you hit it with dry lube. Any pros, most people, they all use Otis dry lube. It really is. It's an amazing product, and it's saved. You can spend $300 or $400 a day now on a duck hunt, to shoot 6 ducks. And it's awful if you go out there and your gun jams and you can't use it and you can't get your limit. You spend all that money for, literally less than $10 investment and save your hunt or your friend's hunt, and then you're a hero. So something like that is very important. Your ammo, brand specifically, whatever you get your hands on anymore. It's really hard to get ammo. So I'm not going to say who's the best ammo out there. It's what you feel comfortable with. Pattern your gun, see how they shoot, do those kind of things, and then pick which ammo. And usually it comes down to price too. Unfortunately, steel shot's expensive. So if you can get a deal on something, check the web, go to your local gun shops. You can check the Otis locator on our website, and most of those shops will carry waterfowl gear, things like that too. So just use us as a reference to go to those stores and get what you need. And then finally, what gear you need also is very important is your Otis kit. This is how you're going to clean and maintain your gun. So I have literally used this gun as a boat paddle. I've used it for a crutch to get out of the mud. I was stuck in my waders in the mud, and so waterfowl guns get filthy, dirty, muddy, and you need something to clean that. If I'm in the middle of a hunt and I use it for that, I still want to finish out my day. So what we suggest at Otis is you do a 3-step cleaning process to clean at least the bore of your gun to start. And that's going to be a wet patch, a bore brush, and then a dry patch. If you're going to store it, you'll use a wet patch at the very end also. To do that with, you'll take your flex rod out of your Otis kit. I'm going to attach my slotted tip first, and this is going to be for my wet patch. So take your patch, you're going to put it on an inner slot, put it through. Now to Otis, this is a little unique to us. We use a patch saver. This pushes the patch out against the bore the whole way down. It almost makes like a squeegee type effect to it with the patch around it, so it cleans very well. If you want more information on how to tie a patch, you can see our other videos on patch tying on our YouTube channel. So I won't get super deep into this, but you're going to fold it, put it through your slotted tip, bring it down, and then I'll use a couple drops of our FP10, 3 or 4 drops, or you don't have to totally soak it. And You're gonna go breech to muzzle. Why do we do that? People go, wow, you're cleaning a barrel, it doesn't matter which way. Why it's important is because you don't want to push any of your fouling, any carbon, any wad, plastic buildup in your gun. You want to get that out of the gun. You don't want to push it back in and then worry about trying to get it out in your action. This is where all the engine or the business happens. And so you want to get everything out of that. You don't change your oil in your car by going through the tailpipe. So you want to start the engine and get it out. So slide this down. You take your T-handle, you're going to hook that to your cable and simply just pull it through. So you can see this gun has not been cleaned today or in the last couple of weeks. But so that's what you're going to get through. You're going to pull probably 4 or 5 patches like that to mop out as much as you can. Then you're going to take your slotted tip off. You're going to take your bronze bore brush and go through the same process. Pull that through 3, 4, 5 times, however you feel your look at your brush when it's going through. Pull that through. Then we'll go back to the patch, do the same system, wet patch, pull it 3 or 4 more times, and you'll see the ring on there, but it'll get lesser and lesser as you go. You might have to repeat that process a couple times, depends how dirty you're gunning. This one is pretty dirty right now. So you'll go through that. Now you've got your bore clean. If you're gonna store your gun, you wanna make sure that last patch you do is with a wet patch, and that just stops you from getting corrosion or rust buildup on the bore lining of your shotgun barrel. Then the other thing you wanna do, on this end of it is your choke tube. Some can be internal, some can be external. This is an external, these are kicks. I like them. What this does is it basically tightens up your pattern specifically to what shells and stuff you're shooting. You'll want to do is run some shotgun choke tube cleaner in there, and this is a pulled out choke tube. And I would just spray this in there, let it sit for a couple minutes, and then take a brush, run that through just to make sure you're getting any wad buildup or anything like that out of there. So it keeps your pattern consistent, and you can reliably know where your gun is going to shoot. When it starts getting a lot of buildup in there, it's slowing down the wad gumming out of the gun, and then you don't get as far a pattern. So it just reduces your effective range for the gun. So you can do that. And then of course, take a little FP10 or your dry lube on your bolt carrier, close that up, make sure everything is sliding. You can hear a lot of if it's grimy or what's going on with it. So you want to get your slides inside, check your mag, well, your tube, push that in, make sure your spring is functioning properly. And then throughout the season, like I said, the dry lube, you're going to just hit that every hunt, every other hunt, just to make sure everything is up and running well. Keep one of these kits in your blind bag. We went over some of the gear. In your boat, you drop this in the mud, you drop it out of the boat, you're lucky enough to find it, you're going to need to do full cleaning, and you can do that with this kit. So that's why it's very important to have the kit with you wherever you go as far as waterfowl hunting goes. So one thing I didn't mention is probably the most important thing is safety with your firearm. So your kit comes with a bore reflector, and those go into your chamber area, and then you'll close it. Basically, this allows everybody else to know if you set it in the boat, you set it in the blind, this gun is safe and unloaded. You treat every gun as if it's loaded, but it's very important, especially you're hunting with other people right next to you, is not to ever point to them with your firearm. Don't sweep them, things like that. It's just super important. Safety is number one. And with waterfowl, specifically, you could have 3 or 4 guys in a boat, you're side by side, it's slippery, you could move, so you just want to make sure that's important. And what I like to do is, because you can get impediments or anything in your barrel like that, taking your bore flag out, I always use a ripcord, even between hunts if I didn't shoot or something, which would never happen. I always get to shoot, I don't know why. You're gonna run your ripcord through, again, going breech to muzzle. This just basically lets you know there's nothing in your barrel when you pull that out through, so the gun is safe to fire. If it's super cold out, you could get a wad or something that lodges in there on your last shot, so you just want to make sure there's nothing in the barrel to do that. So the ripcord is a great way to clean really quick. Pull it through. The gun could still be warm. It actually works better when it's warm. It's like a frying pan. If you try to scrape eggs out of a cold frying pan, you got to really get on there and scrape it. If you clean it as soon as you're done and just wipe it out, it just kind of the eggs fall right out of it. It's the same principle with this. It can be warm up to 700 degrees with a ripcord. So it's not going to melt in your gun or something like that. So you just pull it through, keep it clean, and you're good to go with that part of it. As far as resources for waterfowl, besides videos like this, you can always go to Ducks Unlimited. You can go to Delta Waterfowl. There's a couple other waterfowl associations, state and local game commissions or DCs or whatever you call them in your state, DNRs. Game wardens are a great resource. Please don't ever feel like, you got to be careful around those guys or whatever because you don't want to get in trouble. You're not doing anything wrong. You won't get in trouble. They're a great resource. They know the game and where it's at and what's going on. That's their job. So they're always willing to lend a hand and help you learn some spots or ask certain people, hey, do you think I can get permission from this guy? He's a good guy. Why don't you go ask Bill, whatever his name is, and do that. So they're a very good resource. And it's good to just get to know who's in your area because if you catch somebody that's doing something wrong and, that's affecting your hunt, your kids' hunts, your friends' hunts, because they're poaching or something like that, you need to know who the game warden is because you need to report that. That's, you pay taxes, those are your animals also, and you don't want somebody taking advantage of everybody else. So it's important to know who your law enforcement representative is in your area. So those are great resources to get with on that. So after you've got your gear cleaned, you've got all the equipment you need, a couple quick things to know in the field when you're first setting up and going out to the field. One thing you want to do is put the wind at your back. That's important because the ducks want to land coming into the wind. They use that for an advantage. If they get scared or something spooks them, they use that wind to help push off. It helps them faster. So they always want to land coming into the wind. So you want to set up where you're shooting at them coming that way. Of course, you have to make sure your background is right. So I carry a rangefinder with me. I make sure that I'm within state guidelines of how far I have to be from a dwelling or a road or anything like that. If you know the field, you can Google map them. Usually they have a mapping type thing where you can see how far something is. Just that, and that there is nothing in the background. Shotguns can reach out 400, 500 yards. Not that there's a lot of energy in those pellets, but you never want to land on somebody's car or house or animals or cows in a pasture. You just want to avoid all those situations. So make sure you are shooting in a safe direction. But if you can set up directly into the wind, the birds, or with the wind at your back, the birds are going to come into your face. And that gives you your best shot. They're set, they're coming in, they're the biggest target you can get at that point to do that. A lot of times you're calling birds, they're going to come in and circle first. They want to look at the neighborhood and say, okay, who's there? The birds on the ground are going to be talking back and forth, which is what you're imitating, doing that. And they're going to come in, they're going to circle once, they'll circle twice. Usually the third time is when they'll roll in. Don't freak out the first time they pass and start moving and saying, where'd they go? They're looking for movement. That's what they're doing. That's their job. They're looking for any kind of predators or anything. So let them go. They'll come back. Let them go, come back. The third time is when you want to make the decision. If you and your friends want to shoot them and they're sky busting, that's up to you guys. But I like to make them set. So if they don't set on the third time, they're probably not gonna. I might just shut right up, let them drift off and see if I can get them to come back at some point. But it's 3-turn rule. Like, have that decision and talk about it with anybody you're hunting with prior to. Like, if they don't come in the third time, are we going to shoot at them anyways, or are we just going to let them drift off? Everybody's there for the same reason, but you also have to agree on what that reason is. So don't be afraid to talk about it. And then, so what we like to do, if I'm hunting or have a group out, I've got 6 or 7 guys. I'm going to take 2 guys and say, you're going to cut fodder, where that means you're going to get brush, you're going to get corn stalks, you're going to get whatever, get all the materials you need to camo or blend in everything. 3 guys are going to set decoys. I'm going to say, you're going to set your lookers over here, your sentries, what the pattern is going to be, and look it out. So everybody's got a mission when they're there. It makes it fair, but it goes a lot quicker. So instead of having to set up for 4 hours before daylight, now it's only an hour and a half. Everybody's got their job. We hit the field. We know what we're doing. Everything's assigned out, and you get those things done, and you're ready to go before the birds start flying, and then you get in your group. So laying those things out is very important to do. Remember, it's a team. Even though it's not a team sport, it's a team that goes out there and gets it done. Then your crew, you all get limits versus one person doing it all on their own. So last but not least, decoys. Of course, you've got to decide what you're going to hunt first. Are you duck hunting or goose hunting? Are you doing both? Are you doing dry fields? Are you doing water? So do you need floaters? Do you need shells? Do you need standing? you have to decide what you're going to want to hunt. I recommend most people that start getting into waterfowl hunting, try early season goose first. You get to shoot a lot. It's not super hard to do. You get on a green field. Hopefully when you scouted, you're going to have those birds coming to that spot. You figure out where the X is, and then you set up there. You can get layout blinds. It's basically just a little layout blind that you get inside of. It's got 2 little doors that close over you. It's good for concealment. You're going to want to wear camo, black in your face so you don't have any shine, things like that. You set them up in the field where where the X is, and go from there with that. You can spend a lot of money on decoys. I like to use my friends. So maybe Shane will buy 2 dozen decoys and Jim buys another 2 dozen. You don't have to foot the whole $10,000 bill on yourself. Each one of you buy a half a dozen or a dozen decoys. You've got a nice spread out there with 40 or 50 birds, and you can get away with doing that. Waterfowl is expensive in general. So when you can cut corners like that, those kind of things. When you go to the range, you can use skeet birds, practice on those kind of things. The more you practice, the less shots you'll actually shoot in the field because you're right on. And it's better to shoot a $10 box of trap ammo than it is $2 every shot for shooting waterfowl. You have to use steel shot, so it is expensive. Guys, hopefully you found this video helpful. We covered a lot of things really quickly. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and give it a like. If you like the content of our videos, go to the Otis YouTube channel and subscribe. We've got a lot of things. Please get involved in waterfowl hunting. It is a great sport. Just being with your friends out there and hunting and doing something like that, it's traditional. It's a way to spend time with your friends, and you're not on video gaming or something like that. You're actually out in the field doing something. That's, I think, important, and we're losing some of that. And hey, remember, a clean firearm is a happy firearm, but a dirty firearm is a happy hunter.